Well, howdy, it's Darren from the 10-Week Bible Study, and I wanted to give you an update. It's June 22nd, 2024 when I'm recording this, and I haven't uploaded anything in 4 months. I actually just uploaded an episode that I had recorded back from February. I wanted to give you an update as to why that has been. My plan is to go back to regularly uploading, barring any more unforeseen circumstances. I don't share a lot of personal details on this channel because I really want the 10-Week Bible Study to be about God's Word, not about me. I want it to be about being your cheerleader to grow in reading God's Word and growing closer to Him. But there's an intersection where that desire to make this channel about that and my inability to keep posting because of personal things, that's where this intersection happens. And I wanted to give a little bit of an explanation about what's been going on in my life that's prevented me from uploading for the past 4 months. There's two reasons. The second one is the biggest, but the first one has had a big hand in why I haven't been uploading. The first thing is that I'm actually building a house right now, and I have been for the last year, physically with my hands. I'm actually a little over, not quite 2 years ago, my wife and I found a house, and it had a little bit of property with us. It was really close to our existing house. We didn't want to actually leave the community we were in. So many things we love about where we're at. And we weren't actually looking to move at all. We just happened to drive by this house every day on our way to drop off the kids at school. And it came up for sale. And it was always such a weird looking house. And it just always caught our eye. And but something about it drew us to it, and we just really felt like the Lord was telling us to buy this house. And maybe I'll tell this story some other time somewhere else, but I actually ended up, after we had put a contract on this house, again, we really felt like the Lord was leading us to do this. Even though we had a nice house, we liked where we were, we're comfortable, I didn't want to do all of what I'm doing. Really felt like the Lord was leading us to do this. And then later I went back and actually found 5 times where the Lord spoke to me in a dream going back 15 years about this very house. And so it just felt so clear that the Lord was telling us to do this. But one of the things that became very clear pretty quickly after we put a contract on the house and ended up buying it was that to hire a contractor, at least a good one, to do the work on the house was going to absolutely be outside the budget. This is actually a much larger house than my wife and I would have ever dreamed of buying or owning, and it needed everything. And I mean everything. Like, I'm a year into this right now. The house has been reframed. I mean, it is still nothing but studs. We ripped about a third of it down to the ground and reframed it and built it back up, and had to rip out 100% of the plumbing and electrical and ductwork and heating and ventilating and everything. I mean, it was a total disaster. It very well could have been a complete tear down and rebuild. But so that's what I've been kind of doing on the side, and I've been able to continue publishing and putting out these broadcasts as long as I've been working on the house. The past few months, and the house was actually me putting my college degree. This is a hard hat that I got as a graduation present from the College of Architecture at Texas A&M when I graduated many, many years ago. And I guess I graduated 22 years ago now. And I've been putting that college degree to work with that construction project, but the last few months have actually been quite intense as far as the amount of work and the amount of hours I've been spending on the house, physically doing the labor myself along with 2 other people that are working with me on it. Now, that would not probably have been enough to keep me from publishing. It's really the second reason that has mainly caused me to take a 4-month break. And that big reason is the complete and utter collapse of the International House of Prayer. My wife and I, we moved our family here to Kansas City 8 years ago. Decided to do it 9 years ago to be a part of the International House of Prayer. I was only ever on staff for 3 months. We didn't move here to join staff or to like be a part of it. We actually moved here originally to do a 1-year sabbatical and then moved back to Texas. And we just felt like the Lord called us to be here in this community. We moved to do a sabbatical at International House of Prayer, but we fell in love with Kansas City. And so we decided to stay. I was on staff for 3 months, very briefly. I mean, 3 months is very brief, back in 2018. And I bounced from that very quickly because there were just a bunch of things that I saw that I didn't like. And I'm not going to get into the details of that now. I will be making a series of videos on my personal YouTube channel, which is Darren Hibbs' YouTube channel. There's some things that I feel like I should talk about on that, but it is not germane to the 10-week Bible study. And it kind of intersects with how all of this comes together. So if you're interested in that, then I will be telling more detailed versions of that story in the coming weeks and months over on my other YouTube channel. But I bounced from staff. There were things that I saw that I didn't like, but I still loved the prayer room. From the time that I was 16, I felt like I was called to be a person of prayer. And for most of my life, that is, for the better part of the last 3 decades, that is exactly what I've given myself to. For most of these 3 decades, I have spent at least an hour a day in prayer. I will say that the construction project and the number of hours I've been putting on it and just various other things have actually been a challenge to continue doing that here recently. But for most of my life, that was just what my heart burned for, was to be a person of prayer and just to I enjoyed spending time before the Lord in prayer. And I'm not saying that's something that every single person has to do. That was just how the Lord wired me. And so coming to this place, it felt right. But the longer we were here, the more things that I saw that I didn't like, but I still loved the prayer room. And I loved the prayer room right up until October of 2023. And if you've been following the news, you're aware of what I'm talking about. If you haven't been following the news, if you're not aware of it, a very quick Google search will tell you probably more than you'd like to know. What happened, what fell apart, isn't really just about the founder of IHOP, Mike Bickle, and his sins and crimes going back decades, and the fact that this place was founded on just so many terrible things going back for so long. If it had just been that, it probably would have been okay. But add on top of that the staff that remained, the senior staff and the leaders and the people that were part of the International House of Prayer, their response, their manipulations and lies and abuses of their own, their sins and crimes of their own, their cover-ups, man, it went deep and went back a long way. And again, because I've been here and I've gotten to be friends with a great number of people that have been part of the International House of Prayer, I was able to ask questions of people that actually finally started speaking out. People just didn't talk about the things that they'd seen and had done to them for the past 25, 30, 40 years even. And these people have finally been willing to speak out, and me talking to them privately, and hearing their stories has been heartbreaking. And I can tell you that whatever you can find on the news, as bad as it is right now, it's nowhere near the whole story. Not even close. So that was heartbreaking. It was gut-wrenching to know that the thing that I'd been a part of and adjacent to for many years had been such a terrible place behind the scenes, in secret. A very dark place, filled with so many wonderful people that were being abused, mistreated in every conceivable way. And I mean every conceivable way. Even that happened in October of 23. I still continued to be able to upload. It wasn't until revelations that started to come to light from people behind the scenes telling their stories. And a lot of these stories are not public, and I can't share a lot of stories that I've been told because they deal with abuse. It's not appropriate for someone else to share someone else's story of abuse. It's theirs to share, and it's theirs to process and deal with in their own time, in their own way. But from December to February, December 23 to February of 24, I found out just how bad things were. And then it extended much, much further beyond the International House of Prayer. There's a long list of connected ministries, large ministries, famous ministries, all over the country that I was hearing many stories from. Very credible stories coming from multiple sources. If you're wondering if the criteria of, don't bring an accusation against an elder unless there's 2 or more witnesses, I want to say many, many more in these cases. And I found out that there were just so many bad actors currently masquerading as pastors, large ministries where the staff is complicit, covers up what some of the senior leaders have done or are currently doing. The lies, the abuse. And finding out that the problem that we had just experienced at IHOP ran so deep was gut-wrenching. In addition to that, well, it was far more pervasive than I ever could have imagined. And with the recent revelations about Robert Morris, the pastor of Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, America's current largest church, claim 100,000 congregants across all of their campuses. Dr. Tony Evans in the Dallas area, T.D. Jakes, the things going on with the Southern Baptist Convention, previous things in the Catholic Church. This thing is pervasive, and it's not part of one denomination. But what I began to realize was that the culture that we've created in the United States, this kind of mega church, celebrity pastor, these celebrity people, the sins and crimes of many of these people are so heinous and long-standing and widespread. Learning about some of these things from real stories from people, it wrecked me. It absolutely wrecked me. And what made me hit pause on recording and uploading, I don't have some heinous sin or grievous sin or anything like that to confess. What made me hit pause is I started asking myself, is what I'm doing here, is this part of the problem? And I felt like I needed to take a break until I could come to a conclusion on that, because I was not willing to continue doing this if I was just part of a problem, part of a system that creates these people. We have a problem in the United States, in the West, of creating these churches, and I want to say churches, and I want to say that every mega church is bad, that every celebrity pastor is bad, that every person who's on YouTube doing this thing or on traditional media as a televangelist. I don't want to say that every single one of them is bad, but oh my gosh, we have a problem because so many are. And it feels like just in the last few weeks, the acceleration of what's coming out about so many of these people. And you can look back in time what's come out about people in the past, but it's accelerating. And partly because of social media, women and men are finding their voice, and they're no longer afraid to speak out. And there's more and more people willing to believe them, where in the past they've been gaslit and they've been threatened with lawsuits and things like that. They've been silenced, and this stuff is real. This stuff is real, and I don't think it's wise just to there's people say believe all women or believe whatever everyone who says they're abused. I don't think that's wise or biblical. But when someone speaks up and says they're abused, you listen. You listen. Like when Paul says, don't even hear an accusation against an elder. It doesn't mean that like when someone tells you that an elder or a leader has done something, you put your fingers in your ear and you no, I can't hear it. No, you listen. You take in their story. What he's saying is like, don't hear it. Don't act on it. Don't do anything about it. Don't let it affect you, right? Just listen to them, take it in and be willing to do a little bit of legwork and find out, is there anything else, right? But if there's another person, then Paul's like, listen, if there's two people willing to accuse a pastor or leader of the same thing, Paul does not actually in Scripture say investigate and find out if it's true and then expose him. Paul actually says if there's two people, expose him. Now, I don't know that it's necessarily wise to just hear two people's story. They could definitely collude together before you just go dragging someone's name through the mud. But if you've got two credible people bringing accusations of abuse or other things like that against a leader or some sin, you need to take it seriously. And one of the things that I've seen amongst all of these connected leaders, these celebrity leaders, is not only will find out about the dealings of other people kind of in their spheres, not only will they not call them out, they cover for them. And then they do likewise. And there is just this terrible system. And I don't want to say that every single megachurch pastor, celebrity pastor, whatever, not every single person is a part of that, but it started making me question, is what I'm doing feeding into that? And am I susceptible to becoming that? Is doing this, is the growth of this, is it so seductive that it's going to suck me into? Because on any given day, there's thousands of people that watch or listen to this broadcast. And if that 10x, am I as bad as them? Do I get seduced into money or fame or whatever? I don't know. And so I had to take a break. This may sound overdramatic, especially if you've been in a stable church that's just wonderful for a long time. I'm so happy for you. But this celebrity culture and megachurch culture that we've created in the United States, it's a cancer. And there is a reality for doing what I do. If you could just see the setup here, I have a setup to make all of this happen. I put all this together. I upload everything. I edit everything. Most people who do the kind of stuff that I do, that's how it works. And there is a reckoning. There's something, a reality that someone like me, everyone that does this has to come to terms with, is there has to be some level of narcissism in someone to decide to do all of this, to think that the world is needing what I have to say and share. And, I don't know that there's any more narcissism in this than being on traditional Christian media or anything like that. I don't know. But at least there's, at some point, you have to come to terms with, it's not just altruism or calling, although I think there's those things are in this, right? Like, I feel a calling to do this. I feel like, I want to do these things for free or as free as possible so that people fall in love with God and His Word. That is my heart. But I don't think anybody is immune to liking having people contact them and say they love it or seeing numbers grow, all that kind of stuff. Nobody's immune to that. Seeing numbers and all that kind of stuff, it's a game. It's like going to Vegas. It's the house rules, as the casino, right? They make the rules and they always win. And all of this stuff that social media and our celebrity culture, our media, like the accolades and the numbers, the house always wins. And how do you navigate that without getting sucked into it? And for me, it goes back to something that I had a dramatic encounter with the Lord almost 30 years ago. And it's something that has gripped me for 30 years. It's probably one of the most dramatic encounters I had with the Lord up to that point in my life. And still one of the most dramatic encounters. And I was at a church service. I was actually in the midst of just crying out to the Lord, and I was asking the Lord, like, I want you to use me to win souls. I want to see a harvest. I want to see people come into the kingdom. I want people to get saved. Use me to see people get saved and heal and deliver people and bring the kind of freedom that you did when you're on the earth, Lord. I want to be that. I want to be a part of that. I want to be involved in that. And I heard the Lord so clearly say, I'll do it. I'll let you be a part of it. And I kind of started thinking about, well, I can't save anybody. That's work that only you do. And I can't heal anybody. I don't have that power. Only you do. And all of these things that I'm asking for, I was like, I actually don't know how to make that happen, Lord. If you're saying, yes, I'm going to be a part of that, what are my next steps? What do I do to make that happen? How can I do that? How can I see that come to pass? Like, what's my part? And this is one of those things where no one else heard it. It wasn't anything like that, but I heard the Lord so clearly. And I heard him say that what you're asking for isn't for many years in the future. And your part is to develop the character to bear up under it. And that really gripped me. Because I thought, how do I develop the character to bear up under that? How does anyone do that? And that's been something I've carried with me all these years is, Lord, I want to develop that character. Help me develop that character. And it's like, as you get older, you hope that you've done that. I hope that I've done that. But also as you get older, you realize that one of the things that people are really, really good at is justifying themselves and putting on spiritual blinders, having spiritual tunnel vision, or not even spiritual, just tunnel vision about themselves, and not being able to recognize in themselves things that others can see, or the negative aspects of someone. So when I think, if I'm in that moment now, if what I'm doing here is part of what the Lord called me to all those years ago, have I developed the character to bear up under it? And you get to this place and I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I hope I have. But if I'm honest with myself, how am I the person capable of making that judgment? I don't know. And then on top of that, right, how can I be accountable to you? This is a one-way thing. I mean, with social media, you can respond back and leave comments and email me and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, we don't get to know each other. It's not like being in a kind of a small local church or whatever, where you can be somewhat in people's lives. Even there, people can still be fake. People can still lie. People can still get away with whatever they want to get away with. So in the end, like, how do I know that what I'm doing here isn't part of the problem? And after 4 months, I've come to something of a conclusion. And one of my questions was, is this thing, this kind of thing, I consider myself a very small fish in the same pond that a lot of these other people swim in. But I recognize that I'm in the same pond. I'm the same person, just don't have $217 million mega ministry like a Robert Morris or something else, right? But it's essentially the same thing. Just put zeros on the numbers or whatever. And I asked the Lord, I've kind of been thinking about this. Is this thing, does it attract terrible people, or does it create terrible people? And I think the answer is a little of both. I think if you're not a terrible human being and you get sucked into stardom and fame or money or whatever, and let me lay this out. The money that I make producing the 10-week Bible study, the books, the Patreon supporters, I want to thank everyone that supports Patreon. There's several different revenue streams that the 10-week Bible study brings in, and it basically causes all of the activities to break even. It basically just breaks even. I rent this studio space to be able to produce this because I got kicked out of the studio space in my house as my family grew. and just all of the production cost, hosting, all of that kind of stuff. It just breaks even. Actually, for my taxes last year, I think I netted $100. I made $100 on all of those activities, and so I'm not making money off of this, and I've always tried to do other things on the side to actually make money. But I understand that again, I swim in that same pond. I'm out here doing all of the same things, just with smaller dollars. And so I think it comes down to it's both and. Some people are drawn into this because they just have some terrible proclivities, and they find a way to flesh them out where they're almost unchecked. And we've seen that already several times this year in big mega ministries, pastors, and I promise we're going to see it more. There's going to be more exposures of these kinds of things. But also, I think that these kinds of things, when they explode and people start watching and listening, if you're not careful, I think it can turn you into that thing. And I don't know how it works for every person. I'm sure it's different for every person. But I come back to, am I that person of character? Or can I be that person of character? And I don't get to be the person that can answer that. Because I'm the worst judge of that. Every person is their own worst judge. But I felt in recent weeks a compulsion to come back to it. Because there are so many charlatans making a mockery of the name of Jesus. So many people that smile and talk about Jesus while living dark, secret other lives, abusing people, with no care or concern. And for every one of those voices that's making a mockery and actually turning people away from Jesus, I want there to be more voices calling you to the Lord. So for now, that's where I'm going to stand. I want to continue to stand as a voice, being a cheerleader for you to chase hard after the Lord and to lose yourself in His Word. Just dive so deep into God's Word that it's the thing that just runs through your brain on repeat when you're at a stoplight, when you're drifting off to sleep. So with that, and again, barring any other unforeseen circumstances, I will be back. And I want to thank you for all of you that have reached out and said, hey, where are you? And all of you that have tuned in, all of you that have bought books, all of you have given through Patreon, and everyone else who's been involved with this in one way or another. I want to thank you, but I want to encourage you to keep pressing into Jesus. And no matter what exposures, no matter what truths we find out about different leaders and people, whether they're charlatans or whatever, Jesus is real and Jesus is worthy. Nothing that they do can change that. Like Paul said, let God be true and every man a liar. Even if every single person on earth is a charlatan and a liar, God is still true. God is real. We're going to lean into that. This has been long. If you've made it this far, thanks for staying with me. And I can't wait to get back to diving into Scripture with you. For the 10-week Bible study, I'm Darren Hibbs, and I can't wait to see you next time.